Today I'm excited to welcome Leigh from Talking with Ghosts to Totally Music to chat about his musical career. Leigh, welcome to Totally Music. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. My name's Leigh. I play for a band called Talking with Ghosts. I'm also a music producer for other people, and I run a monthly live stream on YouTube called Live in the Basement, where we work with a lot of acts to help promote their musical activities.
Nice. It's great to have you on. So what got you into music?
I guess it must be my dad. Like, I started playing, I got my first recorder when I was 5 and was totally hooked, and I still play the recorder to this day. I have a much larger collection of them now. But yeah, it was a school thing, wasn't it? You started whatever that was, primary school, and you were handed a recorder and told to try out for the recorder group. So I did, and was totally smitten by it. So that was when I was like 5 years old. Then I joined the local choir. A year or so later, joined the school choir. Yeah, I had the excitement of being the only boy in the recorder group at the age of 7, which was a certain amount of ridicule, I seem to remember. But not enough to put you off. And then when I was 9, I started playing guitar. And since then, I've dabbled with other instruments, which certainly helps me with the production kind of point of view. But guitar then became my main love as an instrument.
Nice. So how did you come up with the name Talking with Ghosts?
Oh, that's a complicated question. Names are really difficult. I really struggle to come up with names for bands. I haven't struggled to come up with names for songs, to be fair. Back in the late 90s, I formed a band with Tim, our bass player, and Steve, our drummer, who I'm still with today, called Tenebrae. And it was like a progressive metal band playing sort of, Megadeth-y, thrashy type stuff. And we did that for about 10 years, toured around, recorded an album, had a lot of fun with it. But we were rehearsing twice a week, gigging twice a week for years, and it became very all-consuming. And then, as happens, you get a bit older, your job becomes a little more serious, and rolling in at 4 a.m. after a gig and then getting up 4 hours later for work ceases to be a really good idea. So we all got a bit overtired and a bit burnt out, and we sort of put the whole thing on hiatus. And then maybe 3 years later, we got back together again to play a party for a friend, and decided we'd try again, but with something a little simpler. So we decided we needed a new name rather than promote ourselves as Tenebrae again. So in the intervening years, I'd set myself up my first home recording studio, and I'd started working on a solo album. And being a pretentious proggy person with a background in classical music, I thought, I know, I'll do this like maybe a dozen songs, and I'll do it in sections, bookend it all with classical pieces. And it was, probably not that bright an idea now I think about it. But I wrote a story about the kind of emotional trajectory of a relationship from people meeting in their teens to growing old together. And the third section of it was called Talking with Ghosts, because I wanted something introspective, like a couple sitting there reminiscing about the things that had happened during their lives and the people they'd known that maybe had passed away, and their family and how they'd grown up, and that, and just kind of that be the end of the arc. And so we were desperately struggling around for a name for our revisited band, and I plucked Talking with Ghosts more or less out of the air, because I'd written this short string octet piece with that as a name. So yeah, I'm afraid it's a slightly pretentious reason for it, but really it was just, you've got to come up with something, so that's what it was.
I like it. So how would you describe the music you create?
Oh, we all describe it differently. That's the problem. I think we've all settled on the fact that it's definitely prog rock of some sort. It's got folky bits, it's got classically bits, and it's got sort of hard rock bits, I suppose, in the way that the sort of Jethro Tull, if you think about their career and their career trajectory, they had a folk period and they had a prog write one song that lasts a whole album period, and they were kind of metal at one point, and it's sort of a merging of all of those different interests that you develop over the years. So yeah, I think we call it prog rock now, I think.
So what's been your favourite song you've written, and why?
My favourite song that I've written? Goodness. Written an awful lot of songs over the years, and they've all been meaningful for one reason or another, I suppose. I try not to get too, whatever the word is, I try not to get too confessional as a songwriter. But I think probably the one that is most meaningful to me is one that I wrote relatively recently called Promises of Green. And it was basically about me and my experiences of giving the eulogy at my father's funeral. And before he died, his sister had passed away, and he'd asked me to set these Dylan Thomas poems to music for him, because I do sort of classical stuff as well. And I had a go, and Dylan Thomas is not a very songwritery kind of poet. And I tried to find a way into these poems and not really found a way to do it. Then after my father died, I started writing a sort of eulogy song and pulled those poems out because they were all funeral poems for his sister. And they were all sort of very appropriate to that moment. They all kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. So I started T.S. Eliot style plagiarizing Dylan Thomas for my new song and sort of fused that into the context of my father's funeral. So I guess that's probably the song that has most meaning to me, at least at the moment. And we play that live in our acoustic set.
So what are your favourite set of lyrics you've written and why?
My favourite set of lyrics? I'm a terrible lyricist. It's like the only thing I hate more than writing lyrics is somebody else writing lyrics for me. So I guess one of my favorite lyrics what happens is I don't like very cliched sort of rhyme schemes or imagery and stuff like that. And so what happens is when you're trying to write something emotive that, we all have the same sorts of fascinations just because we're all human beings with the same sorts of lives. And I start writing, something about a relationship breakup or something like that and trying to do something new with it. And what happens is I write something so totally ambiguous that nobody knows what the song's about. And this is a terrible problem I have in trying to not use everybody else's lines in that circumstance. So yeah, I get accused of being completely obscurantist on a regular basis. But I wrote a song called Waterline that I thought was rather less obscure than than the rest of the lyrics I tend to write. And I'm very pleased with that one. That one is just about it's about growing old, I suppose. It's about becoming middle-aged and looking back on your life. And for some reason, other people thought it was about suicide. And I'm like, I've no idea where that came from, but that's the problem of being a bit obscure when you're writing lyrics. But I'm very fond of the lyrics to Waterline.
So what's been your favourite gig to date and why?
My favourite gig to date? I guess the gig when, I know it seems a bit weird because it's nothing to do with us, but the gig when we got back together again as a band, what had happened was that my brother, I think it was his 30th birthday, and he said he wanted a gig for his birthday. He's a huge Kristen Hirsch fan. Kristen Hirsch is a singer-songwriter, but also plays for an indie band called Throwing Muses, a kind of hardcore punk band called 50 Foot Wave. And he said, I want you to make a concert for me that is all Kristen Hirsch songs, and I want you to involve as many of my family and friends as possible. So I called Tim and Steve up. We hadn't been playing in a band together for about 3 years, and said, can you help me with this project? And they said, yeah, why not? So we put a set together, and we literally spent 6 months doing more or less nothing but working out arrangements with family members, trying to get like someone who knew a bit of guitar, we'd bring in and get a guitar part for them. My brother-in-law's a drummer, so we got him to come and drum on a track and just literally try to involve as many people as we could. And it was an absolutely astronomical project. And then after 6 months, we played the gig, and it was a fantastic show. I think we can't remember any of those songs now, but it did have the sort of knock-on effect that we all remembered how much we liked playing together, and Talking with Ghosts was sort of born out of that experience.
That sounds good. So if you could perform anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Oh, I like to perform as close to my own bedroom as possible on balance. Really, if it could be next door, that would be great. But no, really, because that's the joys of having a home recording studio. You see, you can work very close to where you get up. I suppose, there's a few classics, isn't there? It'd be lovely to play Madison Square Garden. Some of those clubs from the 60s would be great to play as well. It'd be really nice to play like the Marquee, say, in London, while that was still at the height of its powers, and could think of the bands who were playing there at the time. And when Jethro Tull and Pink Floyd and people like that were all playing in those sorts of places. So some of those great 60s clubs like the Marquee would be amazing to play.
So if you could collaborate with anyone, who would it be and why?
We do a few collaborations actually. So there's probably we've just had a vocalist called Robin Licata, who's a fantastic singer, working on a couple of Talking with Ghosts songs. We had Madison Jones, she guested on a song a while ago. So I'm really keen on collaborating. my dream collaboration, I think, would be to get Martin Barr to come and play a guitar part on one of my songs. That would be amazing. But it'd be nice to have. I could think of any number of people I'd like to come and guest vocal on a song. To be honest with you, but yeah, if I get Martin Barr to come and do a guitar solo for me, that would be fantastic.
Well, so finally, what's next for you?
Next, we have a new EP that's on its way. I say it's on its way, but I keep getting distracted by mixing songs for other people. It's recorded now, and it is basically mixed, so I'm going to get that off to mastering soon. It's probably going to be called Dreamcatcher. It's a 6-track EP. It includes 2 of the tracks I mentioned today, Waterline and Promises of Green, and a bunch of other stuff as well. We've got a reasonable gigging schedule we've put together through this year. We've got 1st of June, we're playing with Play About, Octavia Wakes and 9 O'Clock Nasty. We've got some more stuff going around, I guess. We've got some gigs in Nottingham at the Old Angel. So there's a fair number of bits and pieces going on. You can keep a track on those via our Facebook page, Instagram, that sort of thing. And then at some point, we would quite like to record another album. We recorded an album as Tenebrae once upon a time. We recorded the Symposium album with Talking with Ghosts, which you can find on usual streaming places. So one day it'd be nice to do another sort of full-length work, I would think.
That sounds great. So a massive thank you, Leigh, for joining me on Totally Music. If anyone would like to check out Talking with Ghost music, I'll leave all the links in the description below for you. But thank you.
That's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much for having us.